This video is to accompany Modern Quilts Illustrated number 11, and it will show you how to work with templates to make the Argyle quilt. When preparing and cutting out the templates for Argyle, I have a few basic things on hand. I print the templates themselves on a fairly nice stiff cardstock that you can get at any office supply store. I have weights. These are just bean bags I've made, and these are good for holding down templates as you cut around them over fabric. And then tape. So I'm just going to show you the C template, which is kind of the football shaped piece. I keep a separate rotary cutter that I have marked paper because paper does dull blades. And I begin by just preparing cutting the 3 pieces of this out. And those cut out nicely. The other thing that is mentioned here, if you look at the template, there's a square on each template. That square, I'm just getting my measuring stick, should measure exactly 1 inch, which this does. If it didn't measure 1 inch, that would give you an indication that your printer has either scaled it up or down. A lot of printers have a little checkbox that says scale to fit media or shrink to fit page, something like that. It all depends on what kind of printer you use. But you want to make sure that's turned off, so it's simply printing at actual size. And then all the templates should be absolutely perfect. If you measure that little 1 inch square and it's 1 inch, then you're good to go. So this C template has the 3 pieces, as I mentioned, and I'm cutting right on top. Some people prefer to print these out and trace them onto template plastic. I'm not a big fan of plastic, but if you like it, go ahead. I find that the cardstock works just as well, and it's recyclable. But whatever works for you, go ahead and do it. Okay, so I'm setting aside my scraps. And I now have 3 pieces, C1, C2, and C3. I'm just going to take ordinary tape and butt these up exactly against each other. Tape it. Tape it. And then on the printouts there are little red lines. Those are used for registration, for lining up the different blocks. I cut a little wedge out of each one. And what this wedge will allow me to do is make a chalk mark later through the template directly onto the fabric. Doesn't have to be precise, just big enough that I can get my chalk in there later. And so I now have that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pieces of fabric here that I prepared all this, pardon me, right ahead of time. But here I have my sage color. And looking at my instructions, I know that I have to cut one of these C shapes out of my sage. So I'm going to put it on, lay it on very nicely right on top of my fabric. There are lots of ways to place this. I'm just going to place it here. Now, one trick a lot of people do is they take tape and make a loop and put it on the back, or if you have double-faced tape, that works really well. If you put a little loop or two like this, it helps this prevent that from slipping. The other thing I tend to do is I put weights, one on the template to keep it from moving, and others on the fabric so it doesn't move at all. And so actually, let me do this first. Then I just take my chalk, and I chalk right through that registration mark. And I cut right around the edge. Now some people say, oh, how can you do that? Don't you need to use a template plastic so you don't cut through? Well, if I accidentally did cut through, I wouldn't worry. I can always print another template out if I need to. But in general, I've done this enough that I'm pretty comfortable just cutting right around. And occasionally you cut a tiny little sliver of the template off, and that's fine. So there you go. You have a beautifully cut C piece, and I can just add that and keep cutting. And you make all the other templates the same way. You make the A and the B template and the D template, cut your little notches, and it's a great way to register it and keep everything nice and accurate. You'll get very nice, accurate pieces. So I've already pieced a lot of this quilt, but I do want to show how to get very nice alignment so that your points match absolutely perfectly, because what you really want is very crisp, neat points. So what I'm going to do is match my registration marks that I transferred when I cut with the templates. I'm going to pin right at that registration mark. But this is the critical thing. If you look here, I've pressed my seams open. What that allows me to do is I can put a pin directly through, right between the seam, and I'm going to be very careful here to do it 1/4 of an inch. If you look, it's 1/4 of an inch down. So if I go 1/4 of an inch, and I go right through the seam another 1/4 of an inch, if I get my seam to go exactly where that pin is, then my points will match. And here at the end, I'm going to be overlapping, because once again, my seam will be 1/4 of an inch. So I will have my seam line go like that. So I have my angles overlap a bit, and I'll put in a pin. I've got a registration mark here right at the middle. I'm just going to go through, and I have a registration mark right in between on this curve. I'll pin. And so I always make it a point of pinning 1/4 of an inch from the top, because that's where my seam is actually going to go. I've got one more point that I need to match up. So I'm pinning right exactly through, and I've done this so much that I can visualize the 1/4 of an inch well, and you'll get used to it if you aren't already. And then once again I overlap so that my seam comes exactly at the 1/4 inch. And if you prefer to have more pins, you can use more pins, but the curves on this quilt are so gentle that in general, you don't need that many. Now, this curve, this is the concave curve, naturally lies flat. So I'm going to put that down on my table. I'm going to move in here, and I'm going to go and just start. So I'm pulling out my pin right before it gets there because I don't want to break a needle. Now when I come up to the point, I'm going to go very slowly because I want my stitch to go exactly where the pin is. So I pulled it out right in time. smooth this out as I go. Keep making my way around this whole big curve. It's such a gentle curve that it's easy to sew. Again, I'm going to start going a little more slowly. Right up and nail that. I come right out there. And then when I open this up, you'll see I should have a really perfect point right there and there. So now I'm going to press that open and it should lie really, really flat. There's another perfect point. So I'm going to go press this open. So here you can see we have a really nice point.